Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 166. Without any delay, start explanation. Gu's true power was still a mystery within Tang Wulin's heart because he had never seen her devote her all into combat before this. She told him the other day that her spiritual power had already breached the spirit abyss level, and Tang Wulin actually believed her. Gu had always had this quality to her that attracted him to her. When he looked at her, it felt as if he was gazing into a dense fog. Suddenly, a speck of starlight began to glow in Yi Xinglan's hand before it took flight and supported the battle armor, rising slowly into the air. Aside from the most important battle armor core on her chest, her battle armor was more or less complete. Yi Xinglan's presence at this moment could only be described as a god descending from the heavens. Her entire being was as vast as the entire galaxy at this moment. Sparkling starlight gleamed from her battle armor as her star-god sword burst with a piercing radiance, illuminating every possible part in the room. Then, streams of starlight swept past them and fell upon a piece of battle armor, penetrating the engraved soul circuits, carving and linking them to one another. The mysteries of the soul circuits were one of the most important research topics to a mecha craftsman. The difficulty level would increase proportionately to the complexity of the soul circuit. The one-word battle armor designs from Guu were all specifically tailored for her companions, even Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin could even feel the bloodline in his body bringing out his battle armor as exquisite patterns appeared on the battle armor. It was clear to Tang Wulin that Yi Xinglan was now much steadier than when she was making his first piece of battle armor. Her soul power had already condensed and was not dissipating, so even if she was continuously consuming her soul power, it was controlled to such perfection that not even a single ounce was wasted. He could sense her soul power remaining stable under the powerful recovery capabilities of her battle armor. She had truly improved by leaps and bounds, so Tang Wulin would have to train just as hard. As time passed, golden lights continued lighting up on the battle armor before they gathered toward the brace. It was different from the three sharp knives present on the forearm piece of his battle armor. The brace seemed much more pleasant. It had complicated patterns along with a pauldron that protruded outward, dividing into three separate but overlapping layers that appeared unusually dense and thick with scales covering its outermost layer. Tang Wulin's wild combat style was purely from the strength system, and the design of the pauldron was to allow him to collide with the enemy in a more effective manner. The three overlapping layers of the pauldron, in addition to his already terrifying strength, would result in massive destruction if he were to collide with his opponent's body. Tang Wulin could sense the profound but faint pattern of dragons emerging on the surface of the pauldron. Crest lines protruded from the diamond-shaped scales on the surface of the battle armor. These were the exact same scales that would appear when he released his golden dragon body. "Get ready!" Yi Xinglan's shout awakened Tang Wulin from his dazed state, refreshing his spirit as he watched her attentively. Specks of starlight gathered and illuminated the cores of the soul circuits before a dazzling radiance penetrated the room. Suddenly, an intense energy fluctuation burst out as Tang Wulin took a step forward to arrive before the battle armor. He touched his hands against his shoulder and arm in succession and pierced his skin until two spurts of fresh blood appeared and splashed onto the battle armor. It was then that the initial golden splendor from the battle armor immediately turned into a scarlet shade. Tang Wulin mobilized his blood essence and soul power swiftly, and with the guidance of his right hand, he released his vambrace along with starlight that simultaneously emanated from the back of his hand. The soul circuits were coordinating with one another. With a hum, the pauldron soared high into the air and headed directly toward his shoulder. Tang Wulin's blood-stained shoulders readied themselves as they perfectly fused with the pauldron and brace. The armor retracted, wrapped around, and rolled upward, linking the front portion to the vambrace to instantly complete the seal. By infusing his soul power into the battle armor in a frenzy, the bloodline energy in Tang Wulin flared up. He was the one who had forged these metals, so the bloodline connection spontaneously occurred, resulting in the frenzied infusion of his soul power into the battle armor to complete each nodal point. As the scales lit up one after the other, Tang Wulin's aura began growing with the battle armor. His aura was continuously growing denser. Yi Xinglan did not even the slightest shred of respect for Tang Wulin when they first met. As a student of Shrek Academy, she had always been arrogant. However, Tang Wulin's tenacious fortitude left a profound impression on her following their frequent encounters. This was especially so for his quality for not even having the slightest hesitation when it came to protecting his companions. It had been completely seared into her mind. Such a companion and team member had earned him the worthy position of having her trust so she could leave her juniors in his capable hands. The golden light gradually vanished as Tang Wulin moved his arm about with his face filled with joy. He could clearly sense the explosive energy contained within his arm and spread his golden dragon claws appeared. Along with his armor, the golden dragon claw combined perfectly to give him the appearance of a fearsome killing machine. He did not even need to bring out his soul power when his golden dragon claw alone had appeared with 3 inches of golden light surrounding it. The sharpness of the golden dragon claws was the reason for his success against Ling Wuxia today. Ling Wuxia's battle armor was severely damaged due to his golden dragon claws and its unique ability, Smash. Tang Wulin looked at his left hand, noticing that his right arm, shoulders, and chest were already covered in the Golden Dragon King scales when he released his blood essence earlier following his breakthrough of the Golden Dragon King seal. If he were to achieve another breakthrough later on, the scales would probably completely cover his left hand, causing the Golden Dragon Claw to appear on his right hand as well. With 2 Golden Dragon Claws, he would definitely achieve a leap in his power. He already had the ability to break through the 5th seal, but he was not in a hurry in a bid to have more time for himself. At this moment, his thirst for more power had re-emerged once again following the addition of his new battle armor. He had almost lost control and wanted to return immediately to break through the seal. "How does it feel?" Yi Xinglan asked. Tang Wulin was not stingy when it came to compliments. "It's awesome. This is simply perfect." The starlight vanished as his battle armor fused with his body before sinking into his arm along with his bloodline energy. This was the most powerful feature of Spirit Alloy 1-word battle armor. If he wanted to continue forging 2nd-word battle armor in the future, he would only need to continually refine and perfect his current foundation. To top it off, he would have no need to store his battle armor in a soul storage device since he was able to fuse it with his body to be able to release it in a shorter time span. "Thank you, Xinglan. I'm going back to my room now," Tang Wulin spoke. Yi Xinglan asked, "Wulin, is Gu all right?" Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment before he looked toward Xinglan. "Did you notice anything?" Yi Xinglan frowned slightly and said, "She hasn't been in a good mood for quite some time. I often find her in a daze by herself, not knowing what's on her mind. I think it's possible that she's going through some mood changes because she joined the Spirit Pagoda in the beginning, resulting in her ineligibility of becoming one of the Shrek 7 monsters in the future. Spend more time with her, we can all tell that she treats you differently." Tang Wulin nodded before sighing softly. "I don't know what's going on with her either. However, she promised me that she'll join us in the inner court. So what if it's the Spirit Pagoda? We'll be graduating in the future after all, and we'll always remember our friendship no matter where we are. We'll always remember the process of us growing up, and it's fine. The current soul technology is so advanced so we can always see each other no matter where we are. Don't worry, I'll talk to her more to ease her mind." "All right then." Yi Xinglan nodded. "How about you? What are your plans in the future? Will you be staying in Shrek Academy?" Tang Wulin shook his head. "I don't think so. I plan to join the army in the future. It's been my objective since long ago. I'll be leaving for that once I've graduated from the inner court." "Join the army?" Yi Xinglan looked at Tang Wulin in astonishment. "Shu Lishi mentioned that before, but I assumed it wasn't true. You think that enlisting will be better than cultivating in the academy?" Tang Wulin smiled. "This is what I want. I'll do whatever it takes, just like how Gu's goal is to become a member of the Spirit Pagoda. Everyone has their own ambitions. How about you? You'll be staying in the academy, right?" Yi Xinglan nodded. "I don't like the outside world that deceives and schemes. The academy suits me best." "Lishi too. He said that he'll join me and remain in the academy." Her gaze became much gentler when she said that. "That's great. Think about this, where will we be in another 10 years? It'll be wonderful when the day comes that we can all reminisce about the times we had together. Yi Xinglan laughed. That's right. Perhaps it will be as such. You should leave now. I'm going to cultivate. After leaving Yi Xinglan's chambers, Tang Wulin was about to return to his room, but he suddenly recalled her words from earlier. His feet suddenly came to a halt in front of Ji Yu's door. He knocked on the door softly. The door opened after Ji Yu realized that it was him. Tang Wulin walked into the room and announced proudly, "My second piece of battle armor is done. The next one will be yours." Ji Yu smiled. I don't know. We'll wait to see Xinglan's plan. Anyhow, I've already passed her the designs for everyone's second pieces of battle armor. Tang Wulin did not feign his courtesy and sat onto the sofa. He picked up a glass of water from the table and drank a few mouthfuls. Hey, that's my glass. Ji Yu looked at him reproachfully. Oh, Tang Wulin answered and laughed. I drank it anyway. You can wash it later. As he spoke, he poured the remaining water into his mouth and swallowed. Getting ever more infuriated, Ji Yu glared at him as Tang Wulin sniggered. I like your look now. Don't always look like you have the weight of the entire world on your shoulders. We're only 15 years old. I'm already old and steady enough, but these days you look even older than I am. You're going to get wrinkles, you know. Ji Yu grabbed her slipper and threw it at Tang Wulin angrily. You're the one who's getting wrinkles. Tang Wulin caught it and spoke with a smile. I heard a song before. It was titled, The Most Romantic Thing Is to Grow Old with You. Ji Yu, do you think we'll grow old together in the future? Ji Yu was caught off guard. She was suddenly speechless as she looked at him. Tang Wulin stood and walked right up to her. He knelt down and lifted her foot gently, putting the slipper he held back on for her. He stood up, raised his hand and rubbed her head, then said with a grin, Your hair's messy. Scoundrel. Ji Yu scowled at him furiously. Good night. Tang Wulin rubbed her head again, but Ji Yu did not actually try to dodge. He left, while Ji Yu simply stood there the whole time. She did not tidy up her hair at all. After a long while, she walked over and took a seat where Tang Wulin's had plopped himself earlier. She picked up her glass and filled it with water before downing it in one gulp. The most romantic thing is to grow old with you. Tears silently welled up in her big eyes. The first round of the Continental Young High-Ranking Soul Masters Elite competition took 3 days to complete. Some people were joyous while others were heartbroken. The Star Luo Empire's government revealed its great organizational skills. Even though Star Luo City was already overcrowded, they still managed to keep everything running smoothly and ensured that the competition did not cause additional disturbances. After the first round of one-on-one matches ended, it was followed by the first rounds for the pairs, group and mecha categories. The 3 remaining categories had far fewer contestants compared to the one-on-one contest. The first round for each category was carried out every day according to the organizers' arrangement. After the losing contestants were eliminated, one would be able to watch all sorts of matches in a day. Tang Wulin appeared in front of Ji Yu's door with a fresh and cool manner in the early morning to take her to breakfast with him. It was apparent that Ji Yu's charming face was smiling more when compared to the day before. Her gloominess seemed to have disappeared, and her sunny aura was beaming once again. Tang Wulin peered at her continuously in secret as he was having his breakfast. What are you looking at? Ji Yu rolled her eyes at him. Tang Wulin laughed and said, I noticed that you look slightly different today. Do you regret not taking part in the one-on-one contest? Ji Yu scoffed. I didn't participate in the one-on-one contest because I didn't want us to fight each other. If you were to fight against me, how would you maintain your reputation? So confident, huh? Tang Wulin asked in slight defiance. What makes you so certain that I am not a worthy opponent? Ji Yu answered flatly, my power. Perhaps we should get together and compare notes someday, Tang Wulin said with a laugh. Ji Yu pursed her lips arrogantly, yet the corners of her mouth cracked into a smile. Meanwhile, the rest of their companions had already been arriving at the cafeteria one by one. Yi Xinglan sat down next to Ji Yu. When she saw the smile on Ji Yu's face, she could not help but smirk as she darted Tang Wulin a look. It's the 2-on-2 match today. Be careful, everyone. I fought with a Soul King ranked opponent yesterday. The overall power of the Star Luo Empire's Soul Masters is even stronger than I imagined. Full of confidence, Xie said, still useless, no matter how strong they are. Our goal in the pairs category is to become the champions. Yuan and Yehui shot him a look. Shut up. Xie said awkwardly, I didn't say anything wrong. Is it not our goal to become the champions? Yuan answered, even if we are, you don't have the right to say so. The weak have no right to boast. Xie was speechless. Since when am I the weak one? Yuan asked, who have you ever managed to best in a fight? Xie pointed to Shu Lishi without the slightest doubt. Lishi definitely can't beat me. I don't think Xiaoyan can either. Can you be a little less good for nothing? Comparing yourself to the Auxiliary System Soul Master and Control System Soul Master. Yuan and Yehui had a strong urge to send him flying with one hard slap. Xie sniggered. One day I'll be stronger than you. Perhaps everyone will meet a strong opponent today. I can only reveal my true strength when I have found a worthy match. Yuan and Yehui scoffed dismissively. Tang Wulin snapped. Keep your big mouth shut from now on. Xie said, Captain, aren't you going to back me up? Look at Yuan. She's looking down on me. Tang Wulin spoke in an unpleasant tone, then you must use your strengths to prove that she's wrong. Otherwise, don't talk nonsense. All 8 of them were taking part in the 2-against-2 competition. Tang Wulin and Ji Yu were a pair, as were Yuan and Yehui and Xie, Xu Xiaoyan and Yu Jingyu and Yi Xinglan and Shu Lishi. There was no way to tell which pair was the strongest out of the 4 teams. After all, they had seldom engaged in 2-on-2 match. That being said, Tang Wulin and Ji Yu once challenged Yuan and Yehui and Yu Jingyu, and they were still the strongest in overall power when combined. The 8 of them exited the hotel and headed straight for the sparring ground. Wu Zhongkong did not join them, having already gone to the sparring ground in advance. The organizer had prepared a special podium for the Shrek Academy contingent. The first round of the 1-on-1 category had been divided into 3 days, so Wu Zhongkong had actually only managed to watch Tang Wulin's match. He did not pay as much attention to the others' matches. All 4 pairs of Shrek Academy's students were contesting in today's 2-against-2 category. As a leading teacher, he would naturally have to pay the most attention when his students were displaying their abilities. The students of Shrek Academy would start developing in different directions once they had achieved a certain level in their cultivation base, especially the elite students. A teacher had to help them avoid going astray as much as possible and offer some guidance in finding their own path. He would not intervene in any more of their situations. The best method for cultivating truly outstanding soul masters and battle armor masters was to allow them to develop their individual characters in the manner best suited for them. Thus, Wu Zhongkong already seldom gave them instructions. He would help them to correct their inadequacies mostly after they saw their own weaknesses in actual combat. Tang Wulin and his companions walked together after they entered the contestants' passageway. Even though many had witnessed the shocking scene when he defeated a Soul King during the first day of the competition, it had been for such a short time and a few days had passed since then, so nobody else among the audience or the contestants noticed him. The contestants had a special waiting area, but there were already no seats available for them by the time they arrived there. The 8 of them found a corner to stand in, waiting for their matches to arrive. Tang Wulin looked at the other contestants within the waiting area. The competition's age requirement was below 20 years old. He could see most of the contestants were at least 18 years old and above. Some were excited and eager to try, while some were clutching their fists anxiously, and others were sitting and meditating with their eyes closed calmly. He could sense the contestants' levels roughly just by looking at them. The sparring ground for the pairs category was much bigger than that for the individual category. The Star Luo Coliseum was large enough to hold 15 matches simultaneously. Hence, the groups were called in 15 pairs when they were drawing their ballots. The rest of the groups divided through the ballots were then displayed on the Soul screen. The first thing that each group did upon arriving was to check the screen for their own group's position and which opponents they would be facing. Tang Wulin and Gu's group was number 116. The other three Shrek Academy pairs were given the numbers from 117 to 119. Their 4 pairs were numbered consecutively, so it was quite unlikely that they would be facing their own companions. Clearly, this was the special care taken by the Star Luo Empire's government. Tang Wulin and Gu's opponent was number 69. However, they were not the first duo to enter the arena among their companions. The competition had begun early in the morning. The first to enter the arena from Shrek's squadron was surprisingly Yuan Yehui and Xie. "Wait for our glorious return!" Xie shouted, pumping his fist into the air. Yuan Yehui shoved him harshly. "Walk faster. We can talk after we have won." The crowd could not help smiling when they saw Xie's look of frustration. Everyone knew that Xie liked Yuan, but Yuan was really too rough to him. Their relationship had never progressed. There was no way to tell if Wu Zhongkong intentionally placed the both of them together for this paired match. The combination of assault system and agility system in a group was certainly not an obvious choice. Yuan Yehui walked with great strides in front. She was still dressed in men's attire today, while Xie followed behind her sheepishly. "Yuan, how are we going to fight later?" Xie asked excitedly. He was eager to have a go ever since he realized he could fight side by side with Yuan. Yuan shot him a look. "Don't get in my way." Xie was immediately exasperated. "Am I that weak?" "Yes." As they were speaking, they arrived at the Colosseum. The Star Luo Colosseum was very spacious inside. It felt as if it was boundless. The audience's cheering as loud as seismic waves startled Xie. They had arrived at their competition stage, which they had drawn under the guidance of the staff. Their opponents were already waiting on the stage. The opponents were similarly a male and a female, and they appeared to be about 20 years old. It was apparent that they were more mature than Yuan Yehui and Xie. The judge announced the simple competition rules. You are not allowed to intentionally cause the death of the opponent in the match. You are not allowed to use mecha. When one side yields, the other side is to immediately cease attacking. The match ends when I decide the victor and loser. Looking at the rules, the competition in the Star Luo Empire was undoubtedly less strict than some of the Soul Master competitions on the Doluo continent. This was to ensure that the competitors could unleash the potential of their combat capabilities, but in comparison, the risk of injury they faced was also greatly increased. Yuan Yehui walked ahead. Xie stood by her side as they looked toward their opponents. Their opponents seemed to be siblings. They had very similar appearances with mediocre looks and dull auras. Yuan Yehui did not give any orders to Xie. Xie whispered softly by her ear, "Our opponents should be skilled in working as a team. I'll be matching your rhythm later." This time, Yuan did not refute him, but she nodded so gently that it was barely noticeable. "Begin the match," the judge announced. The first 2-on-2 match from that Shrek squadron participated in had officially begun. One of the two opposing youths took a step forward. There was a flash of radiance around his body as 4 soul rings arose from beneath his feet. They were 4 extremely standardized soul rings, 2 yellow and 2 purple. His body was also rapidly undergoing a transformation. His figure that appeared exceedingly ordinary earlier suddenly expanded vastly. He transformed into a giant over 3 meters tall in an instant. The muscles on his body swelled up with brownish yellow hair growing out of it. His entire body was filled with a sense of potency. Was it a bear-type martial soul? This should be an ironback bear. Xie and Yuan Yehui were both top students from Shrek Academy, so naturally, they were able to identify the opponent's martial soul at a glance. The young maiden behind the ironback bear soul master also released her martial soul. She had 2 yellow and 2 purple soul rings. Pale yellow hair began to grow out from her body. Her body did not expand, but her eyes enlarged and a long tail grew out from behind her. Her 4 soul rings were wound around her tail in an unusual manner. What sort of martial soul was that? Xie and Yuan and Yehue were stunned for a while, as they did not manage to identify it at once. The Ironback Bear Soul Master roared into the air. His first soul ring was shimmering while the hair on his body was coated in a golden metallic color. His back bulged as he dashed in great strides toward Yuan and Yehue and Xie. Xie dodged as he glided across the ground. His speed did not appear especially fast, but it still seemed unreal in a way. He glided an arc effortlessly as he circled toward the flank of the Ironback Bear Soul Master. Just then, the female Soul Master with a long tail suddenly gave out a frail laugh. Xie felt as if his mind was in a mild daze, and then his feet began slowing down. It was apparent that the Ironback Bear Soul Master and the long-tailed Soul Master worked together as a team very well. He dodged and then suddenly increased his speed. He used the high velocity that was completely inconsistent with his massive build to ram straight into Xie at his side. The change happened too suddenly. There was no doubt that the long-tailed Soul Master was a control system Soul Master. Even though Yuan and Yehue was already running toward that Xie, judging by her distance and timing, it was quite apparent that she was too late to reinforce him. However, it did not appear that she intended to reinforce him. She was not even prepared to launch her air cannon. Xie's movement slowed down, resulting in him stumbling over. The Ironback Bear Soul Master was already closing in on him. He dropped his shoulders and ran into Xie. It could be clearly seen that the muscles on his shoulders bulged like rocks in the split second just before impact. He was hit. Everyone watched as their two figures collided. However, an unusual scene unfolded at that moment. After being struck by the Ironback Bear Soul Master, it was as though Xie had no bones. He was blown away as light as a feather. Soon after, he flashed past like a phantom shadow. His 4 soul rings had only risen from the bottom of his feet at that exact moment. He had the light dragon dagger in his hand, and it was unknown when his ever-smiling face had turned icy cold. The Ironback Bear Soul Master felt an ominous chill arise in his heart when he saw Xie's gaze. Xie, whose figure was blown away, had only dodged once and arrived onto the Ironback Bear Soul Master's side. Just like a phantom, he turned the light dragon dagger around overhand and stabbed at the Ironback Bear Soul Master's armpit. The attack seemed simple, was actually incomparably swift, like the floating clouds and flowing water. In the split second when the light dragon dagger stabbed forward, radiance suddenly vanished from the surface of the dagger and turned into a dark golden color. There was no sonic boom nor any leakage of soul power, and he did not even employ his soul skill. It was with such a simple action that his opponent was thrown into confusion. The Ironback Bear Soul Master had a very quick reaction to the situation. While he was panic-stricken, his right elbow was already striking downward into Xie's light dragon dagger. The distinguishing feature of the Ironback Bear Soul Master's martial soul was that his body was as hard as iron, so any part of it could be used as a weapon. The iron elbow struck downward. Just as it was about to come into contact with the light dragon dagger, it had suddenly disappeared. With one shuffle of his feet, Xie had already arrived behind the Ironback Bear Soul Master. A sense of joy flashed past the Ironback Bear Soul Master's eyes. The name of Ironback was not just for show, but because his strongest defense was on his back. His body suddenly pushed backward. As long as Xie was behind him, he would certainly be vulnerable. The Ironback Bear had a native trait, shock. If the Agility System Soul Master was hit by shock, the match would basically be over. However, he could not feel his back strike anything. His armpit ached. Intense pain radiated from the armpit on his right, the side he had used to attack with his iron elbow. It startled the Ironback Bear Soul Master. A warm stabbing pain radiated to his entire body in an instant. The Ironback Bear Soul Master's body stiffened at once. In the eyes of the audience, everything happened earlier in an instant. As long as the audience was watching this match attentively, he or she would discover that the close-quarter combat skill which Xie had just displayed was simply filled with artistic sense. He was first blown away like smoke, then his entire person glided, attacked, resumed, circled to the back, turned around swiftly. He managed to complete a few movements in an unbelievably short period of time, just like a ghost. In the next moment after the light dragon dagger stabbed into the ironback bear soul master's armpit, the dagger was lifted immediately after it touched his back as Xie leaped up into the air before he stabbed toward the back of the opponent's neck. The light dragon dagger had only touched the back of the opponent's neck gently. The ironback bear soul master's large body immediately slumped onto the ground at the sound of a thump. His central nervous system was sealed, so the effect was absolutely instantaneous. The long-tailed soul master had only reacted to the situation earlier. Her first soul skill that was displayed earlier was a spiritual disturbance. It was a spiritual attribute skill, but it was considered an especially strong control system soul skill. Her soul skill could achieve a rather impressive result every time it was used while working with her brother as a team. Yet unexpectedly, everything that Xie did was feigned. Xie had learned of the purple demon eyes as well. The purple demon eyes' greatest advantage was its effect in elevating the spiritual power, so although he was disturbed, he could recover in an instant, while Agility System Soul Master's reactivity was always undisputed. A pop sound exploded in the air. Yuan did not even transform herself before her second soul skill air cannon was released out of thin air. It blasted straight to the long-tailed Soul Master. The long-tailed Soul Master flung her huge tail. A ring of light bloomed in an attempt to resist the air cannon. However, Yuan's control of the air cannon was not so easily resisted. The air cannon that looked to be about the size of a fist exploded with the power almost equal to a soul cannon. The control system Soul Master was blasted out by the explosion within the violent booming sound. She fainted. The entire match from the beginning to the end sounded slow when it was described in words, when in reality it took the time for one to take 3 or 4 breaths. For contestants were all having the same for soul rings. However, the result was so shocking as such. Someone from the Star Luo Empire's side was following this match closely on the rostrum. The audience was unaware of Yuan and Yehui and Xie's background, while the organizer was well informed. "Your Highness, these 2 youths from the Shrek Academy were truly extraordinary," an elder whispered to the Star Luo Empire's Emperor Dai Qianling. Dai Qianling nodded gently. "How are they compared to our Monster Academy's students?" The elder frowned slightly. "If they are compared to their peers of the same age, it can be quite difficult to tell." Dai Qianling took a glance at the elder. He could tell that the elder's words signified that he was not looking up at his own side according to Dai Qianling's understanding of this elder. The elder spoke, "However, the competition set the age limit at 20 years old, so it should not be a problem to defeat them. We'll need to continue observing their situation. I can tell from the match earlier that the Agility System Soul Master should be the dominant fighter from his team. His speed, explosiveness, his control of the battlefield and even his spiritual power was rather good. If the Shrek Academy didn't feign his enrollment age such that a 15-year-old boy is capable of achieving such standards, then he is truly a genius. However, other than those aforementioned points, he lacks the essential feature of a powerful Soul Master that is precisely out of the ordinary. I'll still need to continue observing if his martial soul is capable of more abilities." Dai Qianling smiled. He said, "The Shrek Academy is invited to participate in this year's competition as a notable addition. If our people are confident of defeating them in the end, we'll need to do more publicity in advance. After all, the Doluo continent's Shrek Academy is very renowned. If we don't have the confidence to win in the end, then we shall control the publicity in order to avoid crushing our younger generation's confidence." "All right." Xie and Yuan and Yehui stepped down from the stage. Xie's icy-cold expression from the competition earlier vanished without a trace at once. He puffed up his chest with a proud expression on his face. Xie sniggered. "Am I powerful? Tell me, am I powerful? Just a few slight turns and I managed to conquer the enemy." "Shut up. Am I not powerful then? Perhaps you didn't see clearly, I was so handsome earlier, ouch." Yuan and Yehui suddenly turned around and punched onto Xie's stomach, such that this fellow's brag and boast were drowned in his throat. Then, she walked in great strides in the direction of the contestant waiting area. A smile emerged on her face. He had truly become stronger. There were a lot of large display screens in the waiting area. All 15 of the screens were live broadcasting the matches earlier. By the time Xie and Yuan and Yehui returned in succession, the expression of the contestants who were waiting here completely changed when they looked at Xie and Yuan and Yehui. In the current round of 15 matches earlier, theirs ended the soonest. The ultra-strong close-quarter combat skill which Xie displayed was absolutely the most shocking one. In particular, he did not even use one soul skill in the match before he conquered an assault system soul master of the same level of cultivation base. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that although the Ironback Bear soul master did not fully express his powers, his defeat was also directly related to Xie's personal attacks that were too strong. Xie's skill was already not weaker than a soul skill. Tang Wulin stretched out his hand and high-fived Xie as a celebration. Xie dared no show off anymore, but he kept a straight face and appeared cool. Tang Wulin took a glance at the competition sorting. It was his and Gu's turn to enter the arena in the next round. He used his shoulder to nudge at Gu, who was sitting by his side. "I'm so nervous, what should I do?" "Are you nervous?" The corners of Gu's lips twitched. "Stop messing around." Tang Wulin said, "I'm really very nervous. What should we do if we're up against especially powerful opponents?" He feigned an anxious look on his face as he was saying that. Gu pinched him quietly. "Will you start acting like a captain now?" Tang Wulin laughed and spoke, "So are you nervous or not?" Gu answered calmly, "I'll beat you together with the other two opponents later if you keep acting extravagantly. 3 against 1. I don't think that's allowed. The rule forbids it." "You can't do that to me," Tang Wulin wailed sorrowfully in a soft tone. "Captain, I can't stand this anymore." Xu Xiaoyan pouted her lips. Yu Jingyu chimed in from the side, "Exactly, please be more serious." Tang Wulin sniggered. "In a sense, there's a chance for us to fight each other before long." Yu Jingyu spoke furiously, "You're threatening us. I'm going to tell Teacher Wu about this." "Go then." Their little squadron's relaxing atmosphere, together with Xie and Yuan and Yehui's ultra-strong performance earlier, raised the attention of many people in their surroundings. Since they came together in a group, moreover Yuan and Yehui and Xie did not appear to be the leader of the squadron, then, how about the powers of their squadron's other members? Some people had already recognized Tang Wulin. Soon, the story of how Tang Wulin managed to triumph over a one-word battle armor master in a one-to-one match on the first day had already spread in a small range. The competition was carried out real soon. The paired match was even carried out even faster than an individual match. The outburst of an all-round collision was frequently enough to determine the victory and defeat. It was time for Tang Wulin and Gu to enter the arena. The both of them walked side by side along the channel into the sparring arena. Tang Wulin sensed the enthusiastic atmosphere of the Colosseum as he said to Gu, "The Star Luo Empire's atmosphere is amazing. Our side felt too controlled and standardized in comparison. Sometimes, a battle needs some intense passion too. I'll fight alone later. You'll stay behind and help me to hold the line. It'll be your turn when I can't fight anymore." Tang Wulin smiled at Gu. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.